For generations, the story of the incredible African metropolis of Great Zimbabwe has been shrouded in this heavy, almost impenetrable layer of Western myth-making. We've always been told its builders just vanished into the ether. But in this explainer, we are completely reframing that history, and we're going to dismantle the myth of the abandoned city once and for all. Let's dive in. So, the big question. Did 18,000 people simply vanish into thin air? For well over a century, that's been the dominant story. But we're going to look at the actual historical and archaeological evidence to find out what really happened. Because, spoiler alert, complex state-level societies don't just magically disappear overnight. When you have a massive population, there is absolutely always a logical, strategic reason behind major geographical shifts. Just picture the sheer monumental scale of the architecture we are talking about here. Imagine a 700-hectare complex of precisely fitted stone. Look closely at the masonry. These are massive, dry stone walls built entirely without any mortar, no mortar. It's a breathtaking testament to the engineering and architectural capabilities of the people who lived on the Zimbabwe plateau, and it really sets the stage for just how advanced the society was. Section 1. A metropolis of stone. To truly understand the supposed collapse that history books love to obsess over, we first need to understand the absolute peak of this civilization. During the 14th and 15th centuries, Great Zimbabwe was a bustling, highly elite metropolis with a population estimated at a staggering 18,000 inhabitants. To put that number into perspective, it was roughly comparable in size to London at that exact same point in history. This was a dense urban center, filled with elite residences, public forums, dynamic markets, and the homes of everyday commoners and highly skilled artisans. Section 2. The global gold trade. You see, this wasn't just some isolated kingdom out in the middle of nowhere. It was a massively influential hub directly tied to a sprawling global commercial network. Serious wealth poured in from the Indian Ocean trade, bringing in everything from Chinese green-glazed celadon to copper coins minted by the Sultan of Kilwa. If you dug into the archaeological record, you'd find Persian glassware and beautiful blue-on-white porcelain all the way from the Far East. It was a wildly cosmopolitan node in a truly international market. Global demand was directly shaping the wealth of the city. Great Zimbabwe cleverly leveraged local resources, think gold, ivory, and cattle, to completely dominate the Zimbabwe plateau while simultaneously driving intercontinental demand in the Persian Gulf and Asia. They were a local powerhouse feeding a global hunger. Historical sources absolutely confirm that European and Asian demand for gold heavily influenced global commerce at the time, and Great Zimbabwe was positioned right at the source of all that wealth. Section 3. The myth of abandonment. As global markets fluctuated and local resources strained, the story takes a major turn, leading to what conventional archaeology carelessly labeled abandonment. And this right here is where the myth-making really begins. We really need to redefine this term. Abandonment in this context didn't mean an apocalypse. It actually meant a strategic political and economic migration. When archaeologists use the word abandonment, casual readers usually imagine a sudden catastrophe or a dramatic regional exodus into the void. But it's actually a continuous process of transformation. It's simply about moving a residence to adapt to changing circumstances. Simply put, a powerful society of 18,000 people doesn't just evaporate. They relocate to secure better resources and trade routes. This was a highly calculated mobility strategy. When you're running a massive state and the local gold runs out or the trade routes shift, you don't just sit there waiting for the end. You proactively pack up and move the political capital. Section 4. Rise of successor states. This deliberate mobility strategy directly fueled the very next chapter of the region's history. The state didn't end, it multiplied. The locus of power shifted geographically over time. It moved northward to the Mutapa state and westward to the Torwa state. You can actually trace the expansions of the Karanga, the indigenous people of the plateau, as they migrated across the region in search of vital resources over the centuries. While Great Zimbabwe's immediate gold mines depleted, the successor states absolutely thrived. The Torwa built a whole new capital at Kami, inheriting Great Zimbabwe's architectural traditions, while the Mutapa dynasty completely dominated the north by securing more lucrative northern goldfields and adapting to new trade routes. So, you see, the people didn't vanish. Their political and economic centers simply evolved and relocated to much better positioning. The move was triggered by essentially a perfect storm: the relentless search for salt and gold, internal political strife, and the wildly disruptive arrival of the Portuguese on the Mozambican coast. The Portuguese arrival in the early 16th century was a massive shock to the system. It completely upset the traditional Swahili Indian Ocean trade network that Great Zimbabwe had relied upon for so long, forcing local populations to rapidly adapt their commerce and their defensive strategies. Section 5. Reclaiming a Silenced History. Okay, so if the people simply moved and evolved, why did the myth of a lost, mysterious city become the dominant narrative? How did such a straightforward historical progression get so incredibly twisted? Well, the silencing began with 16th century Portuguese written accounts, which relied purely on secondhand coastal rumors rather than any direct observation. They completely missed the ongoing local history. Writers like João de Barros never actually visited the site. They just recorded what they heard from coastal traders, writing these fantastical accounts about ancient fortresses built by demons or lost biblical kings. It would be funny if it wasn't so tragic, because this immediately created a huge disconnect between the physical site and the actual African people living all around it. And this willful ignorance continued right into the 19th century. European antiquarians like Karl Mach discovered the ruins for the West, sparking an era of profound misinterpretation. But here's the crazy part. Even the maps drawn by these explorers clearly documented local settlement activity around the ruins. It proves the area wasn't empty, yet the Western narrative stubbornly focused on finding a non-African, ancient origin for these massive stone walls, actively ignoring the living, breathing people right in front of them. Early explorers literally dug up and destroyed the top layers of history, the essential archaeological stratigraphy, basically tossing historical layers of soil in the garbage. Meanwhile, colonial agendas purposefully categorized the site as prehistoric to blatantly deny that local African communities could have built it. These early antiquarians threw away invaluable artifacts, desperately trying to find, evidence of the Queen of Sheba. This tragic loss of context, combined with a colonial desire to paint the indigenous Karanga people as incapable of such monumental architecture, totally manufactured the false mystery we know today. But despite this aggressive erasure, oral traditions show that the Karanga people never truly abandoned Great Zimbabwe. They maintained a deep, ongoing spiritual connection to their ancestral landscape. Just because the political elite moved their court a few hundred miles to access better gold mines doesn't mean the sacred homeland was forgotten. It remained an active, vital part of their spiritual and cultural geography for centuries to follow. And that leaves us with a pretty profound thought. The stones of Great Zimbabwe aren't a vanished mystery at all. They're an enduring testament to a civilization that adapted, moved, and is still culturally alive today. So the next time you hear a dramatic tale about a lost city, ask yourself, who exactly lost it, and who is there all along?